let's talk about the situation in Eastern Europe and other topics with South Carolina Republican Senator Lindsey Graham. Senator, thanks for being here.
Thank you.
You've been supportive of President Biden's moves with moving forces to the region and said maybe even there could be more going. Do you believe Putin is going in?
I don't know. I know that if we don't act soon in terms of congressional sanctions, that would be a bad signal. The only reason we don't have a sanctions package against Russia's provocation against the Ukraine is the White House, the Biden administration, is holding back bipartisan sanctions that would hit Russia now for the damage done to the Ukrainian economy just by the threat of invasion. And post-invasion sanctions, Republicans and many Democrats want secondary sanctions, not just on Russian banks, but anybody that would do business with a Russian bank. So I'm afraid we're missing a moment here where we could speak with one voice, and the administration is obsessed with not provoking Putin. Well, I think Putin's been provocative, and we need to push back.
You know, your critics, Senator, you've heard it before, would say that there's not a war that you don't like.
Right.
That's what they say. I'm just repeating it. But you've said that more deployments in the region would be possibly a good thing. People are worried about us, the U.S., getting drawn into some big war over there. How do you respond to that criticism?
Well, number one, I'm not advocating sending troops to fight in the Ukraine, and the Ukrainians are not requesting the American troops. But I am advocating beefing up NATO. NATO has been a good stabilizing force in Europe. We haven't had a war in Europe since 1945. NATO was formed to stop the spread of communism. We have a commitment under NATO to come to the aid of those who attacked. It's an Article 5 commitment. After 9/11, NATO came to our aid. So to my critics, the worst thing to do is be weak in the face of aggression. If you want to prevent war, be strong enough to convince people not to engage in a war with you. Appeasement as a strategy led to World War II. So if Russia invades the Ukraine and they get away with it, China's going to take Taiwan, and the Iranians will believe that nobody in the West has the guts to stop them from breaking out to get a nuclear weapon. So to all my friends out there who want to avoid war, everything Biden has done on his watch has made wars more likely, not less likely. And the best way to avoid a war is to let the bad guy, the Russians, know if you get involved in the Ukraine, we're not going to fight you on the ground of the Ukraine, but we're going to destroy the ruble. This is 2022. You can't let one country take the land of another because they can and they want to. That leads to chaos throughout the world. So I've got a very simple statement here. We're not going to send American soldiers to the Ukraine, but we're going to beef up NATO. And if Russia goes in, we should do everything we can to destroy the Russian economy.
Senator, what about what you're seeing from the Russians? I mean, is this just kind of a feint, possibly, or they're looking for more diplomatic moves, some concessions?
I don't know, and that's a really good question. I'm not here to tell you that I understand what Putin's end game is, but I'm here to tell you they took part of the Ukraine, called the Crimea, and not much happened. They're threatening to invade the country to make sure it never joins NATO. They're threatening to destroy the sovereignty of the Ukraine, which is a democracy. China is threatening Taiwan. The Iranians are trying to build a bomb, not a nuclear power plant, for peaceful purposes. So I don't know what Putin's end game is, but I do know this. If he believed the United States and Western Europe and the world writ large would destroy the ruble if he invaded, would sanction their oil and gas industry into oblivion, he probably wouldn't do it. But right now, we're giving him too many mixed signals.
I've got another question on foreign policy, broader, and then I want to get into a couple of other topics. One is you had this hearing today where you were talking about drone strikes, and you were asking this, I guess, a lawyer for the ACLU about questions about terrorism. Take a listen. Okay, for some reason you were frozen. I guess you were very quiet in that particular Q&A. But you said, do you believe if Al-Qaeda and ISIS had the ability, they would strike America today or tomorrow if they could? And she said, the reason I'm having a hard time answering that, yes or no, basically you pressed her, but it didn't seem like you got an answer.
She's the only person on the planet has a hard time answering the question, would Al-Qaeda attack America if they could? Would ISIS attack our country if they could? Just ask them, they will tell you so. So I'm tired of living in a dreamland. If you let Russia go into the Ukraine and dismember a democracy, you're encouraging China to do the same thing. You're making Iran more likely to get a nuclear weapon, and the world is really, literally going to begin to fracture and fall apart. So I asked this ACLU lawyer who's against using drones, do you believe Al-Qaeda and ISIS would kill Americans if they could? She says, I really can't answer that question. Well, I can answer it for you. Here's to the American people. You fight them over there or they're going to come here. You fight them by yourself or with partners. When we withdrew from Afghanistan, my friend, we set in motion Putin going into the Ukraine, China going into Taiwan, and Iran breaking out to get a bomb. We need to stop this cascading effect of bad outcomes and reset the world before it's too late. So she could not give you an answer as to where Al-Qaeda would attack America if they could. I will give you an answer. They would, and they're more likely to do it now that we left Afghanistan and our border is completely broken. The likelihood of an ISIS or Al-Qaeda cell coming through the broken southern border to kill Americans is through the roof.
I want to ask you two questions about politics. One is, there is some infighting between Republicans. Senator Mitch McConnell talking about January 6th and really upset with the way the RNC described it, saying that the need for public discourse. What about that infighting on that particular issue on January 6th? Well,
number one, Ronald McDaniel condemned the violence. The people who went to the rally are exercising their constitutional rights. The people who went into the Capitol to beat up the cops committed a crime. I understand the difference. I think Ronna does. I think we're better off as a party talking about the failed policies of the Biden administration, rampant inflation, broken borders, and out of control, dangerous world. So I'm looking forward, not backward, to those who broke the law on January the 6th. I hope you're prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law, and let's move on.
But if you have the former president continue to talk about the 2020 election and continue to stay on the stump that his Vice President Pence, could have overturned the election, and then Vice President Pence comes out and says, President Trump was wrong, I had no right to overturn the election, shouldn't there be some determination whether he did or didn't, or shouldn't you condemn what he's talking about?
I have no doubt that the Vice President of the United States had no power to overturn this election. President Trump's team made their case to every state in question. They went to courts at the federal and state level. The states certified the election after they made the complaint of misconduct. The vice president could not overturn that. Here's what I wish President Trump would talk about. When I was president, the border was actually secured. When I was president, the Iranians were in a box. When I was president, we destroyed ISIS and destroyed the caliphate. When I was president, we could work with the Russians. They weren't threatening to invade the Ukraine. When I was president, the Chinese were not harassing Taiwan. I wish that's what he would talk about. He was a hell of a president. Look at the difference between the world today and under Biden. Look at the difference here at home, the way we're living, rampant inflation. Policy matters. If I were President Trump, I'd be talking about the policies that made us more prosperous and safe. That would be my advice.
I have 10 seconds. If Judge Michelle Childs is nominated to the Supreme Court, are you going to support her?
If she does well at the hearing, I'd be very inclined to support her, and I think she would get 60-plus votes. It's time to have somebody on the court, not from Harvard and Yale. She went to the University of South Carolina, publicly educated. It's time to have diversity on the court in many ways.
Senator Lindsey Graham, we appreciate your time as always.
Thank you.